Welcome to the Coco Lesa podcast. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Coco Lesa podcast. This is Oyabun and
this is Okasan.
And this week we are going to be having a pretty heavy conversation. We're talking about respect and respectability for women of color, how they're treated, how they're thought of, how we treat them as sisters, mothers, daughters, and just all of that stuff. And I think...
And how they're viewed in Pacifica cultures, not only specifically Pacifica cultures, but...
Well, for Okasan's experience, she's going to be speaking from a Samoan place, and it was a Pacifica issue that popped off this week that made this a conversation, but this applies to the Black community, this applies to the Hispanic and Latino communities.
I feel like it applies to pretty much all
women of color, and that's why the episode is Women of Color, Respect and Respectability, and not just...
Like, our
Pacifica.
experiences aren't all the same, but they do cross over a lot.
Right, and so that's why the name is what it is, you know what I mean? Because even though the majority of our audience is Pacifica, like, yo, this affects all women of color.
Yeah.
And so, for you guys that don't know, the issue that made this a conversation and made this an episode we wanted to do is this week, what was very big in poly Twitter and on Facebook, and just moving around in our circles, was there was a guy, and you know what, I'm not even going to pull any punches. He was really weak, and he was very weak.
No, how about we just state the facts of what happened before we put our own spin on it?
Okay, so fair enough. So, this guy, there was a tradition from Tongan culture where on the wedding night, the groom and the bride show the groom's family the wedding sheets to prove that the wife is a virgin. And they took the bridal sheets, and the sheets were clean, and there was no blood on them. And his family proceeded to take the sheets and slander this man's wife all over the internet and make Facebook videos and Facebook posts and shit like that until it turned into something really major and really huge. And a lot of people from all across the board in Pacifica started talking about it.
I feel that, seeing as I'm not Tongan, I shouldn't really speak on it, from a Samoan, because
I got you.
I don't like when
I'll speak for the
shush. I don't like when Samoans speak on Samoan issues. I mean, yeah, you can, but you don't have all the facts. You don't have the in-depth knowledge.
He spoke on it himself. He spoke on it himself, and I'm talking about in terms of what he said, and he owned up to his weakness and stepped away from his family and was like, forget his mother's entire side of the family and how he should have never let them do that to his wife because their marriage wasn't. So this isn't even about a Tongan issue, and it's not even just about this one particular case. This is about the way women are viewed and treated across the board, again, as women of color. How we have these defined and set standards for what it is and isn't okay for a woman to be. And once she steps out of that, then, oh, she's this and she's that and she's a whore and all of this, you know what I mean? But when it's our sons, when it's our fathers, when it's our grandfathers, we don't have anything close to these conversations. And when it's white women, there's a different set of rules again. Exactly. So we have all of these men out here.
Which really is what you hear a lot, especially for Black women, for brown women, is that we have it hard right out the gate.
Yeah.
And there's a different playing game for us than it is for everyone else.
This is a conversation that's not new to us in any way, shape, or form. And even before our daughter was born, all my life I've wanted girls. So for me, I don't even think I ever really thought about it in terms of feminism, but it was more, this is what you're not going to do when it comes to how my daughter will be treated and how you will, so we've had the agency conversation, right? Because a lot of people, when it comes to faith, supposedly understand agency and that your choice and this and that. But when it comes to other things like your self-value, your self-worth, your respectability, how you feel about yourself physically, emotionally, sexually, then agency disappears and everybody forget what agency means and how it works. And a conversation, again, the reason we've had this conversation is having to choose between culture and our daughter's individuality and her self-esteem and how she feels about it, because we have the humble conversation all the time. But it doesn't matter if you're talking about Samoans or you're talking about Tongans, and there are a lot of dope matriarchies in Tongan culture, but there's still across the board a lot of women that are expected to be subservient and to deal with things and take things that men don't have to deal with.
And you can see that statistically, Pacifica women, domestic violence is really prevalent in our culture because of that hierarchy that men we're supposed to, we're second to men. We're not equal partners with our husbands. We're
women are supposed to be subservient to men. Children are supposed to be subservient to everyone. But Steve, even still in that, your sons get treated a certain way. Your sons can say certain things. Your sons, and this is not even just us taking shots at Pacifica. I want to iterate that again. Look at India. Look at Africa. Okay? Trigger, 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 trigger. Trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning. I'm going to say that right now, and we're going to put that on the title of this episode because we're going to keep it real. So, trigger warning released, talking about rape and sexual assault right now. So look at India and look at Africa. These are places where in many countries and in many situations, it is a crime to be raped, but it is not a crime to rape. And the way that you are looked at and viewed by society as a result after the fact, you are destroyed. You have no future. You have no life left, even if you survive. Because you still have honor killings in India, and that's not 10, 15. This is places that this still happens. I remember there was this one lady, and this was maybe 2 years ago, this doctor in Africa, right? And people were outraged and they were pissed off at her, and it was a female doctor. And it's because a lot of these women in these villages were getting AIDS because they were being raped by these men who weren't using protection. And so this doctor invented a safety thing that women could insert inside themselves, like you do a tampon or birth control, and it had teeth. And it was safe for the women, but if the men tried to rape the women or force themselves on them, it would shred them and remove their ability to do it to anyone else ever again. And the men, even in the African government, were so outraged at this. Well, they shouldn't have. If they were good, wholesome women. This is the conversation that I'm tired of hearing. Well, if she didn't dress this way, if she didn't put herself in this position, so if we're taking it back to this original conversation and this issue, what did his wife do other than be his wife, be his partner, to put herself in this position that it was okay to slander her like this?
Yeah.
You don't even really have to do anything.
But from what I gather, it's this tradition, like the showing of the bed sheets, isn't even traditionally Tongan. It was brought over by white people,
right?
And that just really, it just boggles my mind that colonization just has such an you don't even in places you don't even know them.
This is the education conversation. This is almost every conversation when it comes to anyone that's a person of color. We continuously talk about the effects of colonization on us because people don't understand that it's a real thing. And they really don't get it.
Even in Samoa, the way that women are treated now hasn't always been the way it was. It was brought over by the missionaries.
It's not, and I was trying to hold off on the religion conversation, and I figured we would do a whole episode on religion, and we still can. But this is another thing, this religion and colonization. I'm telling you, as a Hawaiian, right? As someone who loves, supports, lives, breathes, die for the Kingdom of Hawaii, the only thing that I care about more than the Kingdom of Hawaii is my wife, my child, and my twin, right? That being said, I can't go a day without thinking about the things that have been done to my island and my islands as a result of colonization, the death of our last queen, the usurping of our kingdom, how that was done, assisted by the U.S. government, all the things that were stolen from us, how the Kanaka Maoli are the most disenfranchised, and how all of this is the result of Christian missionaries coming to Hawaii and not wanting Hawaiians to have their own home and their own land and feeling more entitled to it, just like the Balangi do here with the Maori. Okay? And just like they do in other places. And to think about that on a regular basis and still know how many black and brown people ride for and support and give their entire lives to Christianity is, I'm going to be kind. I'm not going to say it disgusts me, but it upsets me. It makes me angry, and I really don't understand it. Because this is not central to us. This doesn't come from us. This has no bearing on our history, on our culture, on who we are as people. And it has become so integrated into the fabric of our society that things like these happen, and we don't even get why it's a problem.
Yeah. So I read a thread on Twitter about how people of color, not even people, women of color, they do a lot of work for free. Like, they volunteer work. They do a lot of work for free that men get paid to do. Mm-hmm. And like, when we put that shit on our resume, it doesn't really
resonate.
Well, because we weren't paid for it. It was like, it just frustrates me that
I think the point of this conversation, even when we're talking about not even just feminism, but I think the issue is we're trying to have this conversation so that we can come from, establish, and understand a place of equality, right? There has to be the same standards and the same rules and the same guidelines. The thing that we've always said about rules when it comes to my family is it applies to everyone or is not real. There is no rational reason for why your sons and your daughters should be treated different if you're raising everybody with the same set of standards. So us embodying this Balangi and this Christian mindset of we have to make our women less capable and they're fragile and they're sensitive and they're jewels and they're flowers and they can't handle this and they can't do that, but then they're expected to carry and bear the burden of all this work and all the mistakes of the men of our family and our culture and be the backbone of our society and our families and our homes. There's a disconnect. Mm-hmm. There's a disconnect. You can't put all of this weight on somebody and then not give them the same rights and privileges as people that don't have to do half as much as what they do.
The strongest people in our culture are the women.
Facts.
And not just all women of color. Exactly.
So, like
we have to go through so much, and like for us to come out successful.
It's the material to a conversation. It's also though like the men in the NBA and the NFL, and they're like, oh, I have daughters and I have mother and I have sister. The point of respect, it shouldn't have to be at a place where you like, oh, I have a wife, I have a mother, before you have respect for women. And we really have to destroy this superiority conversation. Mm-hmm. Like, even with brothers or fathers thinking they have agency over their daughters or their sisters' bodies. It's an issue, and the entire culture around it needs to change.
Exactly.
And it's still, until we start changing the way we think about it, like something that I've had to learn to do, and something that I'm really thankful that my friends taught me, was the proper way to champion for someone. So when my sisters, when my mothers, when my wife, when my daughters have issues, it's not my place to speak for them. And that's why I even said with this episode, your voice is so much more important than mine. Uh-huh. Because my responsibility as a man who loves and cares about the women in his life and is not to speak up for you or be your soul. It's to create spaces where you have the freedom to feel comfortable and safe to speak up for yourself and to make sure everybody knows no one is going to do anything to you regardless of what you want to say. That's the difference. And that's part of the issue, and that's part of the problem with that whole, but I have daughters and I have a...
Exactly. And it's like, before she is your daughter, before she is your sister, before she is your mother, she is her own. She belongs to herself. And before the culture claims her, before she can claim being Samoan, before she identifies as a black woman, before she is an Indian woman, she is her own. And that's what people don't realize, is that they're not...
They're people. They're
exactly.
people. That's the issue. There's still this mindset where we're viewing women as property, and people don't even get that. But I think, to jump back in, part of why I took the shot at Christianity and colonization is because we also have to destroy part of the mindsets that come from that. Just because how you live is not the way another person lives doesn't mean they don't have respect for themselves. Doesn't mean they don't care about themselves. Doesn't mean they don't take care of themselves properly. And doesn't mean they're not a good person, okay? Because if you want to be real about it, to be Christian is to be Christ-like. And most people can't be good people on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if you're out here and you're gossiping and you know everything that's going on in somebody's house and you got a secret kid with the bishop and you know what's going on in this and that arena, you know what I mean? But somebody else who's more visible and open and honest about theirs is a bad person, then there's an issue, and the issue is with you. No matter who a woman chooses to be, as long as she's paying her bills and taking care of herself or taking care of her family and doing what she needs to do by her and being safe in her arena, or is not harming anyone else, that has nothing to do with these people. And so no one has to say, but look at the way she dresses, that's why it's okay that this... That's not how it works. That's not how it works. And this is a part of the larger conversation.
And that's like the malu conversation.
This is not the way a malu is meant to be displayed.
Like showing off your malu and stuff. I don't know. I'm very conflicted with that one, because I feel like we should be able to wear whatever the hell we want. But I know that there are certain aspects to a malu that traditionally... But my thought is are those traditions embedded in, like...
But even if we address that from a pre-colonization place, all of this modesty and being covered and
exactly,
3/4 of cloth post-colonization.
Exactly.
We
had our titties out before.
Exactly. You can look at the pictures, you can look at the documentation, you can listen to the stories, because so much of our history is oral history. But even look at our artwork. None of that fully clothed and long dress stuff happened until after Christians and the Palangi and the missionaries came and put their faith and their ideals. We just listened to we were listening to the radio today, and it was an artist or a rapper named Mos Def, and he was dropping gems, and he was dropping wisdom. And something that he said, okay, and this applies to us, is he has respect for the Chinese when it comes to doing business in Africa. Because when it comes to the Chinese and they come to do business in your place or your country or their home, they want to stay them and they want you to stay you. They learn to speak your language, they integrate, they want everybody to have the most comfortable situation possible and do business. Only in European culture is it a thing where, no, we can't interact with you unless you look, act, think, or believe as we do, or you're an acceptable version of yourselves.
That makes us comfortable.
Right? And this is what we have become as a result of that mindset. So you guys are out here repping and barking and shaming and getting on people about things that don't even come from us as a people. Okay? And again, the two main conversations that we're having is how women need to stop being treated as items, and how we need to stop thinking that we have the right to decide what is and isn't acceptable for someone else if they're not hurting us and their lives don't affect us. Okay? And if it's but what if my girls and my daughters see this and they think this okay? That's still on you. It's on you to raise an individual that thinks well enough for themselves and knows enough for themselves and has enough confidence and faith and belief and self-worth to decide what's right and wrong for them without being influenced by the actions and the views of others. And if you want that, that has to apply to everything, not some things. You can't be super in love with your kids because they want to dress what they view as modest and cover themselves, but then you're against it when they have ideas that conflict with yours, or they don't want to go to the same church as you. It doesn't know. You can't be selective with progression. You can't be selective with strength. You can't be...
That's why it really... it irks me when people say that culture doesn't change. It has changed. Look at, like, post-colonization. It's changed. If you look back, people who... Like the whole model conversation again. People who... Technically, you were supposed to be a virgin when you got your model. But now it's changed. So why can't it keep changing to better?
Right. And
I'm not saying it should, but I'm saying the conversation should be had. And don't, like, I don't know.
We also have to look at, and let's be real, because that's what we've agreed to do. We also have to look at the point in the conversation of how many things which are supposed to be this and supposed to be that change when money gets involved, change when power gets involved, because this person and this person needs this title and they shouldn't be able to do this. But if the price is right, then you can have as many titles as you want.
And speaking of titles, there are some titles in Samoa that women cannot get, and that frustrates me because there's certain things that guys need to do that women can do exactly the same as. But this is the Mormon conversation also.
There was this, I don't know how many of you are Mormons, and this may not matter, but so for those of you that don't know, in Mormon culture, in Mormon faith, right, there are many things that women can't do. In order to be a priesthood holder and have agency over your home and be able to lead and guide and put your home into faith and prayer, you have to be a man. And so there was this big conference that they have at regular intervals, and this was like 2014, and a big party of women stood up and they were like, we want the ability to be priesthood holders. We want the ability to do more for and in our faith. We're not trying to jump away. We're not trying to hurt. We believe, we love, we want to be a part of, but we don't want to be discriminated against. Because it's wrong to say because there's not a man in our home that our faith is less, that we care about our families less, that we don't take care of our families as well.
I came from a single mother household. She had 5 girls. None of us could hold the priesthood. But we had to have our uncle come over to give us blessings and stuff. But it's like, why can't we do that ourselves?
Again,
I'm not saying that it's, I don't know, I think just the conversation needs to be had around this.
But you have people that feel a way about this conversation even being had, because I was in church that Saturday after that happened, and a member of my ward, and I loved my ward at the time because they were such good people, and this was an old man who never stiffs up to give testimonies, came up to stand on stage and talk about how people need to understand their place and how everything is the way it is for a reason, and this has been in play long before we were here, and trying to change things that don't need to be changed is unacceptable. And this is the conversation that we've had about civil rights. This is the conversation that we're having now about sexism and discrimination. This is the conversation that we've had and are having about so many things. And the thing that is rough for me is that you have women that suffer from these systems and these rules that aren't fair and aren't right and don't have a practical reason other than misogyny, and they will ride for them to the death. I remember when the election was going on in the States with Hillary and Donald Trump and and they went to talk to women, and this woman was like, why don't you think Hillary, they said to the woman, why don't you think Hillary should be president? Why do you think it should go to Trump? And they said, because a woman can't handle that. It's a man's job. Why should I feel confident or safe putting a man or putting a woman as president of the United States? Mm-hmm. And then they asked her like a real simple question, and she was like, oh, I guess a woman can do that. But so you have people like, they don't even, there's a disconnect. They don't even understand how they're shooting themselves in the foot and go against their own interests to fight for something that if they just stopped and took the time to think about it rationally, they would be against it. Yeah. But because they're so into a place of belief, I always say beliefs are the most dangerous thing in the world, because they don't have to make sense. They don't have to be logical. They don't even have to be based in fact. If you believe in it, it's instantly valid. And you can bark about it and fight anybody about it, and nobody can really come at you because you can't come at somebody for their belief. That's why beliefs are way more dangerous.
It's frustrating that people can, especially white women. I don't want to bash white women, but
it is what it is.
They fight for their own interests. What?
No. Go ahead. I'm listening. I agree with you so heavy. I was about to clap, but go ahead.
Yeah, like when they say, feminism is all, it's never been all of us, as in Pacific Islanders, as in black women. We've never been on the same level as
white
them.
Women always side on the side of whiteness. And then when the issue doesn't pertain to them and they are not at the forefront, then they want other women of color, to put being a woman before race. But they put race before everything. All white people put race before everything. And we're just coming to a place where this is starting to change. But just like we have this good brown people myth, we got the good white people myth. And there's a lot of heroism in this.
I really think white women are the most dangerous women. The most dangerous.
Because that perception of innocence in them, and how they're the saviors, and they hold white men back from being the worst. Nah.
I'm not saying all of them.
I'll say it, all of you.
Shush you. There are some really progressive ones that they pass the mic when it's time to pass it.
Yeah, no, they can do well, and they do. White devils. No, but no, I get what you're saying. So, and again, this is like the conversation that we had. I don't know if we shouted it out already, but this is why I'm so baffled with the Christianity thing. This is why I'm so baffled when people of color, brown people, black people, become white supremacists, and they put white people and white mindsets and white faith and white practice and principles and ideals before their own people, because they have bought into and believe in the inferiority of themselves and their people so heavy that they become champions of whiteness. And this is straying away a little bit from what we started, but this all ties in together, and this is just like black and brown men that don't date or get involved with or won't be with black and brown women because they don't see value in them and they view them as inferior to white women.
Do you know what I hope one day our Pacific Islanders in New Zealand get? Not even. But like how in America the most educated group is the black women. Like, that's the level I want our people to be
I would love that. But this is why we had the school conversation and why we need to build schools and businesses and strengthen our communities. And a lot of times, especially when it comes to activism and progressiveness and things like that, it's our women who are at the forefront of those movements. So, I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to say on this?
I just want to say these opinions.
These are our opinions. We don't think anybody else should feel these. We're not trying to force these on anyone else. And, add us. Feel free to add us. We've given you the social. We've given you the Twitter. Like, you can talk to us. We want to hear from our community about these issues. And on that note, we're going to try and keep this one episode. We know we've been breaking them up, so we're going to stop here. And our little girl's getting a little restless, so we're going to keep talking, and we suggest you do too. And we look forward to hearing what you guys think about this. Thanks for joining us again. And this is the Coco Lesa Podcast.
See ya.